Impact on Your Health is sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, M.D., Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, M.D.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AIM Impact on Your Health. AIM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. AIM Impact on Your Health, well, it's heard each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. AIM Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, fascinating health topics, and of course, we always invite you to call in to join in. The number to do that, as always, will be 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262. May be appropriate to the guest of the day, maybe just completely off the wall because you needed to know about it today. Anyway, we always encourage you to write that number down, keep it right next to you while listening to the show. Speaking of our show today, we keep bringing it back because the story needs to be not exactly always retold, but there's always another little blush, another little look that needs to take place when it comes to, of all things, bioengineered algae concentrates. And we've been hearing from a gentleman, Roland Thomas, located up near Toronto, Canada, who happenstantially, I think is just by accident, came across a very distinguished Soviet scientist named Dr. Michael Kiriak. Well, the outgrowth of that relationship is that today a product is available that is put out by a company called Bioengineered. That is their company. And we've been putting the full force and reputation of ours behind it ever since we first had our initial discussion with Roland. And we keep talking a lot about Dr. Kiriak. We'll just mention him briefly today because I think you know his story. The product is what now, well, we're fully behind because we finally have it stocked in our office. You may be considering it. I'd say for those of you out there who, one of two people, if you are completely immersed in supplements and you're the shopping bag crowd that I usually see coming in taking, hey, the number has been upwards of 20, 30, 40, on an occasion even higher numbers of daily supplements, which I think is really nuts. You do want to find a way to consolidate, and I think you need to be listening today. And for those of you out there that are just saying, I'm difficulty finding the right multi. You know, everybody should have the right multi. Well, if you're in that category, you really need to give a listen today. We're going to be talking about what's inside of BAC, Bioengineered Algae Concentrates, that was formulated by Dr. Michael Kiriak through a gentleman who we've come to know and trust, Mr. Roland Thomas. Dr. Roland Thomas actually is a naturopathic physician. He's going to be with us right after that first break, so you want to stay tuned. And write down, you can go, by the way, to the website. If you got a computer nearby, a laptop near where you're listening, bioage.com will reveal a number of the facts that we're going to be presenting today. And if you don't have a computer, don't worry about it because we're going to go over it anyway. So, that number once again, to call in and check with us on any item on your mind today, 412-825-6262. Now, I hope you enjoyed, because I really did enjoy having David Brownstein with us on Friday. Fridays appear to be a good day for him, and so we took out of the Get 'em Up, Out of Town version of the show the ability for you to call in. Actually, a couple of you were so distraught over it, you called me during the day on Friday because you said, look, I didn't know what to do. And I said, you did the right thing. Give me a call. And we got their questions that were really bothering them. And were on their mind. We gave an opportunity to unload it. But you picked up a whole bunch from David Brownstein, did you not? The guy's got a knack for taking complicated things and making them simple. His books, which now number 9, do just that too. And so even though we talked about his first work, now it's in its first edition called Iodine, plain and simple. And I think, although most clinicians in our area practicing an alternative way always knew that thyroid is something that needed to be treated, but I think that it's the contribution of Dr. David Brownstein that brought the level of sophistication and science behind what we all knew needed to be done, but how to do it and how to objectively go about knowing when you've arrived there, I think that's the real contribution. Back then, 8 years ago, David Brownstein came out with the first edition of Iodine. As I say, now it's in its 4th edition, and I had an enjoyable time with him on Friday. Now, he does have 9 books. If you want to get the book on iodine, feel free to do so. You can check out all of his other books that he has available at www.drbrownstein, that's BROWNSTEIN.com, drbrownstein.com. If you don't have computer access, a little rusty on the computer, the 800 number is 1-888-647-5616. I couldn't recommend highly enough any of the works done by this gentleman. I just got a list in my hand. What? He's got a book on the iodine, thyroid disorders, drugs that don't work, natural therapies that do, salt your way to health, miracle of natural hormones, overcoming arthritis, the guide to healthy eating, the guide to gluten-free diet, the guide to dairy-free diet. As good a job as he did on the iodine, I'm just guessing, although I haven't found him the books yet, I'm just guessing he's done an equally stellar job in the other areas. Once again, that number, let me find it, 1-888-647-5616. Now, here's the way it shapes up this week. Today, we're going to spend our time with Roland. We are going to be able to document all the various ingredients that I think certainly allowed me to put the full force of my reputation behind it. Maybe you who are wondering out there, what should I supplement with, really want to give us some lend us an ear today, because I think that as a whole food supplement, what these algae are, it just heads over heels over anything that's synthetically made. There's just no comparison. On Wednesday, she is going to be back. Now, we're talking about Dr. Susan Smith-Jones. She's always dazzling. She's always energetic, effervescent. And she's going to be talking to us about 10 weight loss tips. That's on Wednesday. Don't forget on Thursday, there were 4 slots open. Now there are 2. There are 2 remaining. Please give us a call if you're interested in occupying those 2 slots for MCG testing, which will be here on Thursday in the office. All day, from 9 to 5, straight on through. Every 15 minutes, another individual steps up and takes this 7-minute test. And we usually have the results that evening before we ever leave. And so when you come, those of you who have signed up and enrolled, be thinking of the time slot or the day that you want to come back here to take the time to discuss the results of that test, because I'm having an opportunity to meet a lot of new patients, many of them steady listeners to the show, just never had, they just, for whatever reason, never took time to establish themselves as one of our patients here. This MCG test was alluring enough that it did invite them to come on in. They did take me up on it, and when we met afterwards to discuss the results, we learned a lot of great things about each and every patient and how to put a plan together for each, which is ultimately what we'd like to do with this testing. So MCG testing is going to be here on Thursday. We're going to set a record for Jerry Singleton, by the way. He's never treated so many patients or tested them in any one given day. And we broke his record at 23 last time. The number set for 32. There will be 32 this time, guaranteed. Okay, that's about it. Now, although we're going to have some time in the remaining couple of weeks of March to allow you to get a lot of things off your chest, I've already got some bookings in April. One of them, the Three Rivers girls are going to be here Three Rivers Thermography. They go a lot of places around the Pittsburgh area. Each and every day they're in another venue. They probably do have a geographically desirable venue near you to get these thermograms done. Of course, they're here. Actually, they're going to be here on the 17th, too. We're going to have a lot of commotion at my waiting room. But they want to come back and discuss some specials they got coming up. And I'm really a big supporter of thermography, especially as a screening for breast cancer, as well as any dental misadventures that may have occurred, root canals and cavitations, you know. Anyway, they're going to be here on the 13th of April. Then I booked David as we were parting our discussions with David on Friday. We looked at our schedules. He's coming back, folks. He's going to be here on the 15th of April, and we're going to get into another one of his books. The one that probably complements his first book so well. First book being on iodine. Well, another book that I didn't even know he had written has been out, and I'm looking at it. It's in its second edition. Goes to show you how long it's been out, and it's on overcoming thyroid disorders. Hey, you want to be here. You don't want to miss it. Okay, that's about the way it shapes up as I see it right now. Let's do this much. Let's take a short break. In the interim, we're going to dial up our good friend Roland Thomas. We're going to be talking about BAC, B-A-C, Bioengineered Algae Concentrates, the one that his company BioAge puts together in collaboration with Dr. Michael Kiriak. We're going to be talking about how great a supplement is it and what does it contain. We'll get into that today with him. Be right back in a moment.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. You become confused about how best to manage your health. It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you are looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Have you been to the doctor lately? Was fatigue top of your complaint list? Even if your doctor asked you what you eat, the recommended 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day is a dream in your busy schedule. What if you learned of a product 5 years in the formulation that delivers 5 servings of fruits and minerals in just 1 ounce? That's right, it's Through the Spirit. The blessings of Through the Spirit are now formulated into a delicious whole fruit array product rich in antioxidants and minerals. Your health is more than just a test result. It's a balance of physical, spiritual, and emotional factors. You work regularly to strengthen your faith. Let Through the Spirit help cover your nutritional needs in a convenient and cost-effective ounce a day. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Through the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. Through the Spirit, 5 servings of fruits and minerals with no added sugars. That's 1-800-442-3793 for your good health. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AM Impact on Your Health. It's heard here on KHB 620 each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you, of course, every one of those shows, and always looking for interesting folks for you here in the Western Pennsylvania area to get an opportunity to hear from. I'm enjoying the opportunity to be able to enlighten you and help you make you become a better consumer, allowing you to take care of yourself and your family in a much better way than you heretofore have been able to do. Now, in that vein of thought, there is, every so often comes around an item, a device sometimes it is a supplement that just puts itself in a different category. And I felt that from the initial readings about what we're going to be discussing today, this certainly fits the bill. Of course, the gentleman who keeps on bringing us the information to enlighten us on this new product, his name is Dr. Roland Thomas. We're speaking to him from up near Toronto, Canada. He's with us right now. Let's say good morning and welcome him back. Good morning, Roland, and thanks for coming aboard this morning.
Good morning, Dr. Courtney. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Well, this is, I think, marking maybe our third or even our fourth show, and sure it's not going to be the last, but as I had said just prior to saying hello to you today, you know, every so often something comes by my way, and it really catches my interest, and I get deeply immersed in it, and that's really what's happened since I've been exposed to what it is that you, in combination and in collaboration with Dr. Michael Kiriak, has put together in the way of what I do consider to be the ideal supplement. And when supplements are such a large part of how I conduct what I do, even though I am a medical doctor and could, if I wanted to, write a lot of prescriptions, don't seem to do that at all. Always trying to find a way to bring vitamins, minerals, herbs, and other things come into play. And here you are with a product that I think does it better than anything else. I will say, I'm fully stocked now, Roland. I've got all the stuff. It's in the office, okay?
Wonderful.
So,
congratulations.
Well, yes, we're now on board and we're together. Could we, and probably in the most brief terms, because looking at all the ingredients that I want to discuss with you today, we're going to have to move this one along. But it wouldn't be fair not to start the story about BAC, which is Bioengineered Algae Concentrates, without talking about its inventor, discoverer, a gentleman that you came in contact with in the late 90s. His name is Dr. Michael Kiriak. Interesting Soviet scientist. Tell us a bit about him. Put it in a capsule form so we can move on.
Michael Kiriak, I was honored to meet him, was motivated at a young age, around 12, following the death of his father from pancreatic cancer and other members of his family, including his grandfather. That led him to study biology, and particularly cellular nutrition. He was picked as a great student by the Soviet Union at the time, and he was assigned to research in finding solutions to alleviate low productivity, particularly because of cancer epidemic in the livestock industry of that part of the world. We're looking back at the 70s here. He was a brilliant student and had latched on to the discoveries by the Japanese on some research on some chlorella, a microalgae, which showed promises in alleviating, preventing health conditions, as well as the growth of cancer, the growth of tumors particularly. And over the next 15 years, Dr. Kiriak, along with several assistants, eventually it became a very large project, able to investigate as many as 1,000 algae, different strains from different parts of the world. They were mostly all microalgae, which led to the development of blends of algae. In other words, mixing several of these microalgae together to achieve greater results because of the food combination aspect, as well as because of including complementary value, and particularly discovering those red algae that have very high antioxidant content. And the antioxidants are known, as we know in the cancer, even the Cancer Society tells us, those are the nutrients, the red pigments that we find, for example, in tomato, as in lycopene, or carrots, as in beta-carotene, are the nutrients that can prevent the growth of new tumors, that can prevent cancer, and which led to a blend, ultimately, that they coined bioalgae concentrate, or BAC, which was able to prevent and even suspend or stabilize cancers in more than 20 species of animals tested. And as you know, we have a current, unfortunately, issue in Japan with potentially radiation leaking. Well, Dr. Kiriak was able to test his formula after the terrible disaster of the Chernobyl explosion of reactor 1.
In 1986.
In 1986, and many of us recall, and was able there in a very short period of time to test this product that had shown so promising with the animals with some humans. And as he says, many of these people are alive today. And I think, in a nutshell, that encapsulates his story and the story that I've detailed much more in the book called Awakening the Genius Within, which you have in stock now, or you should have received today, and you'll be able to offer that to your listeners.
That's right. That book is now available here, as well as the product. And it's a nice done. You put that book together. It's a nice, it's not a lengthy book. I'd call it an oversized pamphlet, but the information in there is what really tells the story as you've just told it, and then gets much more specific as to the actual algae concentrates themselves. The Awakening of the Genius Within. A catchy title. By the way, how'd you ever come up with that title? I just a little interested.
Well, Dr. Kiriak himself, when I met him, barely spoke French, certainly not English, but he does now. He speaks certainly as good a French as I do, which is amazing. And he's able now to do presentation in English and be heard. But at the time he told me in French, réveille le génie de l'organisme, which means the bioalgae are able to awaken the genius within, and he meant the hypothalamic pituitary axis, which is the governing organ at the center, at the base of our brain, which regulates all of our metabolism 24 hours a day, all our glands or organs, our temperature, our blood sugar, or anything you can think of, even our breath or heart rate is monitored constantly by this organ, which he called the genius within, for lack of a better, description.
I think that's the best description. The best description anybody could come up with. I think it's a very appropriate title. I just thought I'd ask how you came up with it. Turns out it emanated from the lips of Dr. Kiriak himself.
Yes.
And so I think it was very good of you to pick up on that, because I think it's an alluring title, to say the least. The topic is extremely alluring. Let's delve into it some more. Now, the actual product, this actual bioalgae concentrate, is a mixture of 4 algae. How did he come up with the 4? Because what I'm reading here, there's over 70,000 algae species, and I don't know how many of the 70,000 he really tested, but he comes up and picks 4. How did he do it? Why did he do it that way? And let's talk about that mixture.
Well, he already knew about chlorella, which is a microalgae. Of the 70,000 plus algae on Earth, the majority are microalgae. They're the types that are invisible, and there's so many species all over the planet. And then there's a macroalgae, the likes of sea vegetables or sea kelp and so forth. These were ruled out very quickly because they often carry, they're mostly bulk and fiber, and they carry a lot of iodine or other issues like that. They're not practical. And so he latched on to the microalgae, and already in the 70s, besides chlorella, spirulina, which is known today, very famous today, or I shouldn't say very, but quite popular, as is, for example, blue-green algae from Lake Klamath, which has been popularized over the last 20 years. So he already had a starting base. But what he discovered was that all of these algae that we just talked about are the green algae. They're very rich in the chlorophyll and the minerals and the proteins, particularly. They're as high as 70% protein, and really that's not what we're looking for in a medicinal herb, if you wish, or algae. Because protein we can get every day. It's the easiest thing that we get on our table. But what he subsequently discovered was that within the red algae, the families of algae, that they're coined red because under the microscope they have so many red pigments, the likes of lycopene and lutein, beta-carotene, the orange pigments of carrots, that they show a presence of a color of redness rather than green. And those nutrients are the ones that are the most medicinal. They have properties of not only feeding in a rare fashion, crossing our cell membrane and even crossing the cell membrane of those cells that are coined the blood-brain barrier, that protect our brain from poisons or parasites and so forth. So they're more efficient, dramatically more efficient than protein, for example, in the prevention of disease, in the protection of free radical cells, in quenching our their anti-oxidation. And so that was brought in to the mix because the green algae didn't do what they were looking for. And that's how that they began to look all of the known strains from around the world. They would import those in their labs and conduct hundreds and hundreds of tests with small groups of animals. Particularly in the beginning, as we know, we use rats particularly. They're a good test bed for in research because they have some similarity, their disease makeup with humans. And later on, they moved on to testing different species, mostly mammals, sheep and goats and rabbits, and eventually hogs and dairy cows, chickens. And they were able to realize that by blending some of the green algae with some of the red algae, they were able to first, more importantly, prevent the growth of new tumors or cancers, and subsequently they were showing the ability to reduce the size of tumors and even quench some tumors in some case, and see animals go back to productivity, return to health, and even produce milk again or lay eggs again.
And that success story of the Soviet scientists in his earlier years, dating back to the 70s, named that mission accomplished. I mean, whoever it was in the Soviet system of education that identified Dr. Michael Kiriak as the guy we need to be, they sort of told you what you were going to do back then, and how they came up and said, you, Dr. Kiriak, or Mr. Kiriak, are going to go over here and to study microbiology, and lo and behold, the guy's a genius and comes up with a completely safe and interesting way of taking care of livestock, ultimately human experimentation done after the terrible Chernobyl accident. And I'm just thinking, as you already mentioned, with this thing going on in Japan, do you think Dr. Kiriak may go on over and try to help out there, or what?
Well, I'm sure his heart goes there. I actually have not spoken with him this weekend. Probably we'll be speaking with him this afternoon. Many of our clients and some in Europe have asked us questions about how the bioalgae could help there. There's no doubt that if there are people affected with the radiation, particularly if you take it before you're impacted or early on before, particularly if the radiation is low grade, the bioalgae would offer a protection immediately.
By the way, with that little thing in mind, when Chernobyl hit, was he dispatched real early, like right after it happened, or was it sometime later? Because he had some good results. Could they have been better if it was earlier, or was it really early after the Chernobyl event occurred?
Well, nothing was early.
Nothing was, you know what, denial was what was going on, I know.
Denial was early. They also had no experience of what it would do. This was the first real, definitely test of a nuclear reactor explosion leaking of that magnitude. So really, he was brought in months and months later as part of a committee where actually he met Gorbachev himself in a large meeting. And at that time, they were looking for solutions from any angle. And Russia, the communist Russia, was not, as you know, close to natural. They didn't have this pharmaceutical industry locking everything in. They were open to using devices or natural, anything that could help. And that's how he was identified as having potentially a solution about 300 miles from Chernobyl in his research center. So they allowed him to take on hundreds of particularly children and some adults that were mostly scheduled to die, that were at dying stages, and see what he could do. And so it was not a formal project. They were really panicking, and they were allowing many experimentations. That's how he shares it with me, basically. So it's a blessing that he was able to perform these tests, but also see positive results.
Okay.
As much as saving many of these young children.
Okay. Let's turn away from the story of Dr. Kiriak, which each and every time you tell it, I learn something new that I didn't learn before, and so, geez, I'm going to keep on asking to tell it every time we ever hook up on these radio shows. He's a fascinating man. By the way, as we were talking last, and I asked you, does the man speak English? And you told me, yeah. It looks like we might be able to get Dr. Michael Kiriak actually to come on the show, and we're working to try to do that for next month. Aren't we going to try to do that?
That would be a lot of fun.
That would be great.
You'd hear it from the horse's mouth.
I am dying to do it. Let's just say ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned, because the month of April, we are going to produce Dr. Michael Kiriak here on this radio. Now, I got some interesting questions here. When it comes to how this product you put together is accomplished, I've really got interested in the care and the precision by which these algae are formed. You're not just going down to the lake, okay? You got a special setup. It goes all the way to, it starts in Siberia. Describe that thing over there that was where he got the initial algae to begin with, and where he still gets them today to make your product. What are the criteria for the growth and harvesting of those 4 kinds of algae?
When I met Dr. Kiriak, he shared with me that already in the 70s, he was managing the growth of algae in Russia in 2 facilities, which produced more algae than any other facility on Earth, including a lagoon or wild, I shouldn't say wild algae, but those grown by humans for either animal or human consumption. But later on in the 80s, he was overseeing 5 locations which were producing yet even more algae than all of the algae producer on Earth. So I knew I was in the presence of a world leading authority on algal technology. That was my feeling, and that was one of my motivations to write the book and to continue learning with him. But what they had learned to do in the process of having to organize themselves privately, secretly, as you know, in Soviet Union, everything was sort of secret, was to develop a facility where they could grow algae, which they coined a bioreactor, or basically that's the name of the covered facility where you produce your own heat, light, and the environment, or the man-made lagoon in which hydroponically you grow algae. They had advanced these types of facility more than any other science at that time. They're very sophisticated bioreactors, even by the companies like Chevron and Exxon, that are producing algae for oil or for use in energy. Now that's, if you wish, that's algae 101 in that for use in animals, but particularly with oil or energy, you don't need the sophistication that the human cell needs. What they subsequently discovered was that the location on Earth where you grow algae makes what the algae will be. In other words, if there's 30 trace elements in Lake Flamete, that's what the algae can pick up. It only picks up what's available in the soil or in that lagoon, as do, for example, potatoes or tomatoes will pick up what's in the soil. So, in other words, the word organic here is important. Organic is the preservation and the richness of the soil. So they discovered that, of course, they knew that algae grew near volcanic regions, as in Hawaii or Lake Flamete, because the volcanoes have spewed out some thousands of feet below the soil the rich trace elements and mineral which the algae thrive on. In Russia, there were not too many locations like that, given the temperature, also because you need a lot of light, a lot of sun. So they discovered, they didn't discover, but they knew about volcanic peninsula in the northern Siberia, namely called Kamchatka, which is the most active volcanic region on Earth. So they began a bioreactor there, take advantage of the richness of that region in terms of the subterranean minerals and trace elements. And they made the discovery that they were able to produce algae with the most number of trace elements mineral on Earth, based on what they knew from around the world. Namely, today there's more than 100 trace elements in the blend. That you can never achieve that with one single algae. At best, you may find 40 or 30 or 50 minerals. So that's part of the technology. As well, they discovered that when you use a thermal geyser, thermal spring water, that you avoid the surface pollution that you find in lagoons or in lakes. So that became part of the power of the algae. In other words, you can take an algae from a zero on a scale of 0 to 10. A low, actually polluted algae grown in a non-nurturing environment will give you a 2 on a scale of 0 to 10. While the type of algae that we're talking about here, we're actually blasting over the 10. Because not only do they get the purity of no pollution, but also the richness of the trace elements, which is unheard of in that arena. But also, they also implemented technology within the bioreactor to nurture the algae as you nurture a child, using proper temperature, movement control, because you kind of replicate an environment of a lake or the wave of an ocean. The algae like that stuff. It's called movement control. And also the light is the critical component. Perfect lighting will yield the best, the most of the antioxidants. With light, you actually stress plants, which is what the sun does on, for example, on tomatoes, and they become red. Matter of fact, the sun stresses us too, and we develop more antioxidants and vitamin D and so forth. So it's a similar approach, but they discovered the perfect lighting, and those are the major secrets, if you wish, that he revealed, that we revealed in the book, with the advancement of that technology, which at the time that I met him already 12 years ago, he told me, Roland, kind of stuff that we were doing 20 years ago is not even going to be done in our current, in this century possibly. The advancement of algae technology, nurturing algae for human and animal health.
So what he had put in place for developing those algae that he used in these two large experiments is the same place that this algae that is purchasable now through BioAge, your company,
Correct. Yeah.
harvested the same way, grown the same way.
Correct. He has maintained some of the students that worked with him. There were many students involved in those research. These were academic research, sponsored by the Academy of Science and later on by the Ministry of Nutrition. After the separation of, or the, let's say, capitalization of the communist Russia, then that became a private enterprise in which he has maintained the relationship and quasi the ownership subsequently after he left Russia in 1996.
All right, so it's still grown over there in the Siberian geyser spring-fed lakes, which are then covered over and hydroponically grown under these ideal conditions. You then harvest it. I guess, do you dry it over there, and then the dried algae is sent to Canada to be processed?
Correct. It's they're filtered. That's the first step, and then they're freeze-dried, which is a very it's an instant. It's freeze-dried in a millisecond, and so there is no protection added of any kind, any artificial protection. There's no fertilizer added to the product. It's protected by the freeze-drying process. They're shipped in Canada, where the blending is done under his supervision. The blending process is a very sophisticated technology, mostly because you cannot, mixing 4 different powders together in a uniform way is not just an art. There's a science to it, and one of the biggest hurdles in doing that is the time that you apply it, of course the kind of tumblers that you use, but particularly is the protection from exciting the enzymes within the powder. They're loaded with enzymes, which when they become alive, just like when you drop an apple from a tree, the brownness is the enzymes beginning to act.
Sure.
So that's part of the technology, and then subsequently they're encapsulated. That's another technology that no one that we know can achieve at this time, to fill with such small capsule so evenly. He had even tried to go, I was a witness of that, to go to even a smaller capsule. Imagine 2/3 the size of what you've seen. And technology was not able to fill them evenly enough to obtain Health Canada certification for uniformity. So he reverted back to the size 1 that we are currently,
which is was relatively tiny. Now this is pure. This is pure. You've mentioned many times to me, even on the air here, that when you get the product in Canada, this is certified as contaminant-free by this Canadian organization. I understand it's pretty rigorous testing. Am I right?
Well, it's Health Canada standards, which demand independent testing for pollutants or contaminants, heavy metal and parasites and so forth, at least to the levels that's accepted pretty much by a world consortium for importation to the USA or from Europe or to Europe. And also the nutrient analysis as far as having a standard batch and standard capsule is also done by an independent laboratory. Namely, we've used Brunswick Labs in New Jersey. They're one of the most reputed. They're the company that invented the ORAC testing, for that matter, as our independent test. And that's done at before it exits into bottle. So after the encapsulation, those tests are performed.
Now, nowhere, although when I know about organic, because you don't spray these, there's no pesticides, could this product, is it product called organic? Is it organic?
Well, between you and I, and Anybody with a brain, yes. Because organic, if you mean certified, then no, because there is no certification in Siberia.
Oh, yeah. You have to have on-site. Yeah, you have to have on-site.
Yeah, it is very
yeah,
difficult,
that's right. So I can't see the Canadian boys going on over to Siberia and doing it.
What organic means is there's two different aspects to organic. One is that it's free of herbicides, and it is guaranteed free of herbicides.
Sure.
In our case. But the other dimension, which is even as important, is what if you have an organically certified, let's say, apple, that is grown in a soil completely depleted of nutrients? So what? You got no herbicides, no pesticides, but you get no minerals and no vitamins.
That's an extremely good point.
Just giving you kind of a side of the point.
All right.
So here's my description. These bioalgae are, in my knowledge and that of Dr. Theriac, not only are they organic, but they will render whomsoever consumes them organic. They will give you life. We're talking about thousands of nutrients. That's not depleted.
Nice.
My,
I like your thinking, and without carrying the certification because of some I believe to be snafus based on location and like, this does meet the test of being organic, and for all intents and purposes, I'm going to refer to it as organic from this point forward. Okay with you?
Correct. And you can throw in kosher.
And kosher besides. All right, very good. Now, we have let the hour clip away, but I'm going to, because I've got a list in front of me, and not that you'd ever forget, I want to go through and have our listeners appreciate how much is packed into this algae. I've never found a supplement. By the way, if you're listening to me, go pull your supplements out, and you be checking each and every ingredient that we are going to quickly go through and see if your supplement has it. It won't have nearly, I'd say 50% of this. I'm probably right about the percentage, but can we start with a pretty rapid fire way of going through these ingredients, Dr. Roland Thomas?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
We'll be linear here.
All right. Well,
We've got all known amino acids, which makes up a full human active protein.
all known contains the
amino acids, 20 something.
20 essentials, or 8 to 10 essentials.
Non-essentials.
All essentials and non-essentials. That takes that category. By the way, there's a long list at bioage.com for you to see them listed. But by saying all of them, you try to find a supplement that has all of them. I think you're going to be hard pressed. Another category.
What's important here is that it competes with meat as a pre-vegetable. So that's rare that in one vegetable kingdom that you'll find a complete amino acid equivalent to what you might find in, and including B12. So there is even though B12 is not part of the protein, but it's a constituent of the amino acid makeup in our daily life.
How about another linear projection with respect to vitamins? You got all vitamins too, don't you?
Correct.
Every one of them.
Yeah, every one of them. And what's nice is that they're not occurring as isolated or separated or in dose, let's say in mixes that are not even, that are not balanced. They're occurring as families of A, B, C, D, E, and that's important in human nutrition. When we consume an orange, broccoli, green pepper, apples, the vitamins that are made by nature in such a way that they are complementary, that they help one another along in the nutrition and the digestive process. That's the way nature made it for us. We're not necessarily meant to consume 50,000 IU of vitamin D.
That's right.
2,000 milligram of vitamin C, which our body is able to deal with 10 milligrams per day. Why should we put 2,000?
Good point. Let's move to minerals and trace elements. This is one of the few supplements I know that has every single trace element that's known to man, as well as the macro minerals that are there in larger quantities as would be expected, but they're all represented, every single one of them, correct?
Correct. And with Brunswick Lab, we were able to see on the last batch more than 86. While this is at 0.05 parts per million, so they're not able to test for the presence of the finer one. But if you were to go in with a single intention of finding whatever lithium or whatever the smallest, for example, mercury, you could dwell in and find mercury present at such a minute amount that is actually a benefit to health.
I've heard the concept
like
before.
Selenium at large quantity is a poison, but we need selenium daily. It's very similar with gold or with lithium and with silver. We need a very, very tiny.
Okay, we're going to move along. Here's a new category. I would say hard-pressed to find them in a daily supplement, and especially what we've called a multi. Enzymes contain thousands of enzymes. This is a bonus. This is a real bonus, is it not?
Correct. There are very few food on Earth that have more enzymes than needed for their own goodness, if you wish. For example, apple will have enough enzymes to kickstart the breakdown process, like when the apple becomes brown and so forth. Well, papaya is one of those foods that has a lot of papain, abnormally a large amount, which is rare. But microalgae, I shouldn't say incredible, but it's an abnormality that it contains so many enzymes, literally thousands. Those are food enzymes that are of benefit to humans.
All right, let's move to a category. Catches me by surprise, really. I had to go back and read it a couple times. When it comes to the fats, the omegas 3, 6s, and 9s are well represented in this plant, and I think that's one that, I wouldn't have expected to find.
Correct. As a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons why algae are looked at, microalgae are looked at for oil. The fatty presence of fatty acids, what makes up oil, is rare, and it's the complexity and the numbers of. And again, they're occurring in a balanced way, as in omega 3, 6, 9, because none of them are bad when they're occurring in a normal balance.
In their natural state.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's also some rare fatty acids that we cannot find in any other food on Earth. The gamma-linoic acid, for example. That's a champion, and it's known to be a fatty acid that delivers, when we consume it, protection, immunity, as much as early mother's milk cholesterol. The first 6 days or a couple of days after birth, there's a quality in mother's milk that can never be found again. But this gamma-linoic acid is known to deliver that kind of protection.
Just fascinating. Now, there's some other ingredients that I've never seen added to any of the supplements. Tell me why, because I do expect to find it now, that chlorophyll would be of benefit. This would be one that most people aren't worried about getting their chlorophyll consumption every day.
Yeah, we lost the light. Chlorophyll is the most important nutrient on Earth. It's what replenish the oxygen in the atmosphere. It's what the jungles are good at. It's what our green foods do. Chlorophyll is a principal initiator of what the energy in our cells. In our cells are the mitochondria, these little battery pack that consume our sugar and our protein and converts it into electricity, or ATP. I'm just making it simple here. But part of that is chlorophyll and magnesium is an initiator of all of the cofactors that occur in this incredible Krebs cycle, this coenzymes and CoQ10, for example, is used there. It's a biochemical formulation that makes PhD amazed at the complexity that occurs thousands of times in our cells, in each cell of our body. Yet, without chlorophyll, it doesn't happen.
Well, I tell you, with a few minutes left, and I won't even probably allow you to have an opportunity to make a comment, but we're still not done. I'm going to just mention this is laden with polysaccharides, which I'm not too familiar with as appearing in any of the supplements that I usually see. Phytonutrients, big word, by the way. Phytonutrients has come into vogue recently, and you would expect to find them in a living substance such as algae. Lo and behold, this thing is loaded with phytonutrients. And then finally, in the antioxidant category, most specifically represented by vitamins of that quality, but especially laden with the carotenoids, beta carotene and alpha carotene, correct?
Correct. Those are the biggest in volume in the product. And, for example, beta-carotene is what the orange pigments of carrots, but alpha-carotene, which is unknown, at least in popularly not known, is as much as 20, 40 times more efficient than beta-carotene. So the algae contain a lot of alpha-carotene. And then underneath that, you'll find those that are popular right now, lutein, which has been popularized for your eyes, or lycopene. But then there's some famous ones that are barely known. Quercetin, astaxanthin is known as the king of antioxidant owner.
Well,
most efficient protection from oxidative stress or in quenching free radical, which really leads to the birth of new tumors. So in quenching tumors before they're even thought of in our body.
Tell you what, the discussion could go on. We have to pull it close. Let me put the final salient point, which I think is you have a jar of supplements in front of you right now. I'm not so sure you absorb 10% of what you are going to consume. This is fully assimilable. This is natural food substances. This is all absorbable, which I think makes the final plus. All these ingredients, they're still going to get in the bloodstream, every single one of them. Roland, thanks for coming aboard today. Thanks for allowing us to discuss this. Ladies and gentlemen, go to bioage.com. Come on to my office. We have the product. We've got the books, and you can get them right here. Roland will be talking to you and getting lined up for our April encounter with himself, okay?
Yes, that will be fun.
Okay.
Chat with you.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed today. Look for her on Wednesday, Susan Smith-Jones. Until then, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney with Dr. Roland Thomas saying so long for AM Impact on Your Health.
AM Impact on Your Health is sponsored by Bioengineered, director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, MD.
KHB reminds you, children are naturally curious, so follow their lead. When you talk to your child, you build vocabulary. Learning starts before school does. For more tips, go to bornlearning.org.
Controlling inflammation is critical to good health. The inflammatory response is a basic mechanism of our immune system. And while a healthy immune response includes occasional acute inflammation, chronic inflammation is increasingly linked with many chronic diseases. An omega-3 fish oil supplement is a natural and effective way to support your body's natural anti-inflammatory response. Of course, not all fish oils are created equal. Nordic Naturals fish oils provide industry-leading purity and freshness and a great fruity taste. With a complete line of award-winning fish oils for adults, children, and pets, Nordic Naturals makes it easy to get the omega-3s you need.